house. You're enjoying your time in Philadelphia in the offseason, so sorry to disturb you, but hey, this news broke. We got to get your thoughts. What were your first thoughts when you saw Kawhi going to Toronto, your favorite city?
Well, I thought it was a great trade by the Spurs to get a 28-year All-NBA player and got him locked up for a few more years. And Porter is a really good player off the bench. So I thought it was a great trade by the Spurs. They wasn't going to get anything better than that, to get an all-star player and a really good backup and a number one draft pick down the line. I thought it was a great trade. But Toronto, they swinging for the fences. That's my favorite city. Maybe Kawhi's going to like it there. They took a chance. Do I think it was worth it? Listen, they got nothing to lose. Listen, Kawhi, if he is all in, going to love that city. One of the best kept secrets in the world. But I thought it was a great trade by the Spurs, man. A really good trade on the circumstances.
And, Chuck, we knew Pop was not going to send Kawhi to the Lakers and make them better overnight. And I know you're a big Masai Ujiri fan. What does Masai need to say to Kawhi to make him feel welcome throughout this season to possibly try to keep him for future?
Well, I think he's probably the most underrated GM in the league. If you go back and look what he's done, drafting players and making trades, he's made Toronto a perennial first-place Eastern Conference team. They haven't been able to get past the Cavs, but they've been one of the elite teams in basketball for the last X amount of years. It just depends on how Kawhi want to go to L.A. or not. I mean, I'm not sure if there's anything that Masai can do. But I'm saying he can. He only got it for 1 year. But if he wants to go to L.A., clearly he's going to go to L.A. There was no way. I told people a month ago, the Spurs are not going to trade Kawhi Leonard to the Lakers and have to play against him and LeBron for the next 5 years. So that was never going to happen. But, man, Toronto went for it. I give them credit. But, listen, I like what the Spurs did. DeMar is one of the best players in the world. And, I also think, they're one of the teams in the Western Conference. I think Houston came back to the pack losing Trevor Ariza. I think Oklahoma City is going to be better without Carmelo. I think the Timberwolves are going to be pretty good. And I think the Spurs are right there in that mix. And then the Lakers are right there somewhere.
So you mentioned the Lakers, so I have to get your thoughts because it doesn't seem like the way the roster is constructed right now that the Lakers are going to compete for a championship. We all know that things could change, but last season we saw Paul George openly want to go to the Lakers. The Lakers don't make the move to get Paul George. Now, essentially, the Lakers find themselves in a very similar situation with a player that says they want to go to Los Angeles, but the Lakers didn't necessarily make all the moves to acquire him. So where are the Lakers sitting at right now?
I think they're the 5 or 6 seed in the Western Conference. I don't think they're definitely not contenders. But I think you can say that probably like they're around 5 or 6 in my opinion. I mean, LeBron's great, but they don't have a lot to go with him. I mean, I think there's some elite teams in the West. The West is going to be a dogfight, and I don't think the Lakers are a contender.
And, Chuck, now with TNT having the Eastern Conference next year in the playoffs, how happy will you be if Toronto makes it back to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Well, I think what's going to be interesting, it's a 3-team dogfight between Toronto, Boston, and Philly. I think that's going to be, it's going to be a dogfight. I'm going to enjoy any of those 3 cities. Now, you know that. Boston is just an hour flight from Philly, so I can stay at my house. If Philly gets there, I can stay at my house. And Toronto is one of my favorite cities. So those are the 3 elite teams in the Eastern Conference. So it's going to work out good for us. I tell you what's going to be interesting is Boston. Because, I don't know if they have enough basketballs to go around. I mean, they got a lot of talent, man. They got a lot of talent. But it's not going to be easy to just put 2 all-star players back out there and everything's going to work perfect. And Jaylen Brown and Tatum, man, they have terrific years. I don't think they want to stand around and watch Kyrie and Gordon just score all the points. They just stand around. So, and in with Al Horford. It's going to be very interesting with all that talent they got in Boston, how this position works.
Hey, Chuck, well, thanks for joining us. I know you're enjoying your offseason in the city of brotherly love, and, you know, you're looking forward to the Eastern Conference Finals. But just enjoy your offseason in the meantime playing golf.
Hey, listen, you know, there's nobody better at free time than Charles Wayne Tucker.
Having Charles is always great. And then there's NBA Twitter, which is great as well.
Good morning.
Good morning. Donovan Mitchell, of course, shocked. The NBA offseason is awesome. And we get a Legends thoughts up next. Isaiah Thomas joins Game Time. This deal being made by the Spurs and the Raptors, from the Spurs' perspective, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a curious move. By the way, good afternoon to you guys. I'm learning a lot of new lyrics to rap songs. Thanks, Ro. You know, it's 3D and I talked about this when the news of Kawhi potentially being traded and all the things that were transpiring between the organization and Kawhi's group. And 3D and I really hit on this point, Ro, and that is for the way that Coach Pop and RC have handled the organization over the course of their time there. There's been a lot said, and I was very fortunate to be part of this experience, about there's no one player that's greater than the team. What I think would have been really difficult to swallow for all the years that Pop and RC have done this is for them to have extended Kawhi Leonard to that max contract, given all the years that Tim Duncan sacrificed money, Manu Ginobili sacrificed money. All of the times we've heard Pop talk about how he's built the culture and what he believes in, to reward Kawhi Leonard in that way, given what the franchise had to deal with over the past year with the grumblings and the back and forth and not stepping up and doing your job, that would have been the curious thing. So I'm not surprised that San Antonio didn't, go all the way in. They obviously extended their hand to try to make this relationship something that they could repair. And at some point, they're going to make the decision, and 3D knows this, that their basketball team is bigger than any one of their players. And I think that that's why we got to this point where a trade was going to happen. Now, I think a lot of us are surprised that it's Toronto. We thought, Lakers, Clippers, and maybe Philly sliding in. It's a curious move. It's a bold move by Masai Ujiri to do what he's done. But the Spurs were ready to move on. And interesting the way they're going to go about their rebuild, adding another mid-range shooter to a team that, has moved off the three-point line and now has some more versatility in a stud in DeMar DeRozan.
And with that being said, Bones, how does Pop and the Brass change his thinking, knowing he's upset that the Raptors said they weren't going to trade him out in Vegas, then he does get traded? How does that system change his mind and make him feel welcomed?
Well, you and I know this, 3D time will help that out. It's still, we're talking July. We've got a couple of months still before guys are going to get themselves to the cities where they're about to play and begin training camp. There's always a lot of hurt feelings, and as a player, you always take a trade. Your perspective on those trades become a lot different as you get older. And I know DeMar's talking a lot about loyalty and about promises. Look, we understand loyalty for a player should always be about the game. That's it. You want somebody in your corner. You want to believe in the franchise and the organization. But when it comes down to it, you've got to believe in what it is you bring to the game. And DeMar will get back to that, I think, very, very quickly. The interesting one, 3D and Ro, is Kawhi going to Toronto. This is Nick Nurse's first full-time head coaching NBA job. What is he going to do with that team that, last year pushed the envelope, tons of wins, has tons of expectations? How does Nick Nurse handle assimilating a guy like Kawhi Leonard into what they want to do systematically? That's going to be an interesting thing that their training camp, coming out of training camp, how it is that they play and the approach of Kawhi Leonard.
So you have DeMar DeRozan, who's played at an all-star level in the Eastern Conference, but in some opinions, he hasn't met expectations in the postseason. So now going to San Antonio, do you think that he can live up to those expectations? And is he the type of player that can fit in Pop's system, as he's been more looked at as an ISO player in the Eastern Conference?
Hey, Ro, if you want to play for Pop, you better fit into the system. Or you're not going to play. Absolutely, DeMar can do that. Look, the guy's been on the All-Star team for the past 5 years. He's averaged over 20 points the last 5 years in the Eastern Conference. Obviously beloved since he got to Toronto back in the 2009-10 season. DeMar will figure this out, and San Antonio will find ways to use him, and they will be effective. Look, the team won 47 games last year with Kawhi just suiting up for 9 of those. You add DeMar DeRozan in his prime. You add Pirtle, a very capable big man that they think could probably do a lot of switching on the perimeter and still guard an area that has a lot of room to grow, a great prospect out of Utah. And then you have some flexibility with the draft choice. I know Masai did a great job of protecting that 2019 pick 1 through 20, and I think it turns into a couple second-rounders if that doesn't happen for San Antonio. But this team, San Antonio, will find ways to still be competitive, and they didn't want to give up on that by bringing in DeMar DeRozan at this point in his career and the security of those 3 years. Now, whether he stays there or not, I'm with Griff. Who knows? But for right now, I think it's the deal that San Antonio sort of had to make, and nobody stepped up with a better offer given their question marks about Kawhi Leonard and his health.
And with that question mark, Bones, let's say Kawhi and Masai Ujiri have the right conversation, he buys all the way in. So when you bring he and Danny Green into the situation, 2 champions, when you look at that roster, you say, wow, if all these guys buy in, this Eastern Conference could be wide open. Maybe this team could get back to the top again.
Oh, 3D. Their roster is legit. You got their best player is Kyle Lowry. I know DeMar DeRozan is the favorite in Toronto, but Kyle over the past couple seasons has been their most important and most valuable player. You're going to have Danny Green, who's played 100 playoff games, step into that role with C.J. Miles behind him. Great veterans and guys who can pull the trigger from the three-point line. Kawhi Leonard potentially starting at the 3, Serge Ibaka at the 4, Valanciunas at the 5. And then all that bench unit last year that came in and had massive impact. Fred VanVleet, OG. They're going to be at Pascal Siakam. They're going to have a very complete roster, 3D, and it's going to be exciting, again, just to see how quickly and how much Kawhi Leonard impacts what Toronto can do and be about for next season.
Of course, the big bombshell dropped. Now, we have to wonder, what does this mean when you move your all-time leading scorer to San Antonio and you get Kawhi Leonard in return?
Well, you're getting arguably one of the top 5 talents in the NBA, but probably only for a year at the most. It's you're moving a guy, DeMar DeRozan, who professed to want to play his entire career in Toronto. He more than any other Raptor, and I've covered the team since day one, accepted the responsibility of being the face of the franchise, the city, and the country. I think there are mixed signals out there right now about what this means for Masai Ujiri's willingness to pull the trigger, obviously, on a major trade, and what the long-term implications are. It's a big gamble, but, every trade is. And is Kawhi Leonard now the best player in the Eastern Conference? I think you can make that case if he's healthy as he was in a year and a half ago.
Well, you mentioned long-term right there, but what about short-term? Let's look forward to next season. Is Toronto now the team to beat in the Eastern Conference?
If you could start Kyle Lowry, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, OG Anunoby, and Jonas Valanciunas, and bring off the bench Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, C.J. Miles, DeLon Wright, and Serge Ibaka, you're pretty good. And in the Cleveland Free Eastern Conference, I think you're absolutely as good as Philadelphia and Boston and Indiana.
So going back to long-term, you mentioned Masai Ujiri. So what are the chances that he could keep Kawhi Leonard here past this one season?
I think they're probably remote. Everything that anybody's heard is that Kawhi has designs on going to live and play in Los Angeles. But this does sort of, if it is only 1 year and it doesn't work out, it sort of hastens any kind of rebuild that Masai's got in plans. He's constructed this team to have 2 more years with this group, with the formerly DeRozan, Ibaka, Valanciunas group. And this sort of moves up that process 1 year if it fails. Obviously, it's a gamble because the trades of players of this magnitude is a huge gamble, but the short-term implications are good. The long-term implications aren't all that much different. Because if in 2 years the Raptors weren't good, they were going to blow it up anyway. And this sort of moves that up a bit of a year.
Well, it's definitely a high risk. Hey, Doug Smith, thanks for joining us.